Good morning. So, Swapnil, it's my pleasure to have this chat with you here today.
Thank you.
So, Ather Energy has been one of the pioneering companies, right, in the Indian two-wheeler electric market, and is playing a very, very crucial role in terms of our transition to electric mobility. Hearty congratulations to you and your entire team for this phenomenal Make in India achievement, and your focus on design, performance, and the smart features that you're building into your two-wheelers, now setting it apart, right, from the competition. So hearty congratulations and a big round of applause to Swapnil
Thanks.
and his entire team.
Thanks, Avi.
So before I ask you the first question, right, I just want to quickly reflect in terms of the global EV trends. And if you look at it from the last few years perspective, global EV has really taken off. There was rapid electrification that was talked about. There's a lot of hype, but also a lot of sales, right? Globally, with China leading the way, Europe, US, right? Everywhere, I think we have seen a tremendous amount of growth to the tune of 60 to 100% year on year. But I think the situation has changed slightly over the last few months, especially starting the beginning of this year. We have seen a significant drop in terms of the growth rates. The rhetoric has changed, the narrative has changed. There's a slight element of negativity, skepticism that has come in, given the drop in the growth rates. I won't say, the IEA data says it's about 20-25% year on year for the last couple of quarters. And we also seen a lot of announcements from OEMs trying to defer some of the programs, the EV launches. We also seen cuts in the R&D spend. We also started noticing that there's a bit of a shutdown of manufacturing capacity, right, in some countries. So there's been a bit of negativity, right, and there's a lot of press around this. So as the founder and CTO of one of the India's leading two-wheeler electric OEMs, how do you view the current landscape in terms of EV adoption, especially in India? Are we truly on the path for mainstream adoption? Are there still some significant challenges? If so, can you reflect on some of those?
Right. Thanks, Avi, for having me here. So, I think firstly let's look at India. And within that, especially the two-wheeler segment. Yes, some of the numbers have come down, but that is actually more on the back of subsidy sort of waning. We have almost, if you look at like almost 18 months back, the subsidy was to the tune of about 50,000 rupees per vehicle. Now it's down to about 10,000 rupees per vehicle. But even after that, if you compare, the sales haven't really actually gone down to the similar extent. Like the last quarter, I think about 17% of the scooter sales was from the EV pan India, right? So. And this is even as the subsidies are going down, all the OEMs are able to do enough R&D to do the cost reductions. And actually, again, the battery prices have been falling quite rapidly. About 2 years back, the battery prices were at their peak. Now they are at their the lowest watt hour per dollar per watt hour. So. So the trend is still in the right direction. If you go and ask today in anyone who's willing to buy a two-wheeler, they would definitely consider an electric two-wheeler as one of the choices. Yes, there are some doubts in people's mind, but still the inclination toward EV is quite high. So from a consumer demand perspective, I don't think as much has changed, especially for India. Prices maybe, but not from the just desire for the product that has not changed quite a lot. Now, some of the things which we're quoting from the global players, that's also because of you'd see more in the ICE players than the pure EV folks. The ICE players, they thought they are going to miss the bus. Everyone started spending a lot of money. They did not get as much, and that's usually the case, right? Like the ICE people will have a struggle to transition to EVs, and those when they tried transitioning, they did not see as much success, and they started slowing down. Yes, there is some amount of hype which was also getting created in between, but of late it's not about it's actually now the hype is waning, and we are now in the steady state trajectory. All the fundamentals, if you see, the costs are coming down, right? Like the biggest drawback of a biggest impediment for an electric vehicle is its cost. And if the cost and the cost of batteries are coming down, cost of powertrain are coming down, the cost of entire EV architecture is coming down. So the fundamentals are right. The costs are going to come down. The performance are going to increase. The reliability are going to increase. And I don't see any big challenges in the adoption. In the mass market, actually, especially in the two-wheeler segment, the mass market adopting to electric powertrain. Yes, we need a certain amount of stability in terms of, especially in terms of policies, good or bad, whatever it is. The policies have to be stable. It has to be long term, at least for the next 7 years. We have to commit to a certain level of strategy as an country, and we will see very good uptake in terms of electric vehicles, especially in the two-wheeler segment.
And what are some of the challenges that you face?
I think actually, honestly, the biggest challenge has actually been on the subsidy or not subsidy, but the policies front. It's not about high or low. It's about having a clarity and a long-term sort of visibility towards what the policies would be for the next 7 years. Because automotive industry, you cannot like suddenly scale up, suddenly scale down. Your product choices also depend quite a lot on what kind of policies are in place. So having a steady policy and outlook for almost like at least half a decade to a decade, I think it's very, very critical, because that's how you design. Then you have to design a platform. The platform life is about 7 years, 8 years. If the policies keep changing quite rapidly, you can't keep changing your designs that rapidly. So I think I don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the policies have been bad. India has had some of the best policy to push EVs. Just that having a stability on that is also very, very critical to be able to push on to the entire dream of going almost pure EV on two-wheeler up to 2030.
Sure. So you have kind of solidified your position as an innovator, right, in the EV market, and you have demonstrated a very strong commitment to R&D spend, right, over the last 10 years. Make in India, right? You are very committed to that. A lot of indigenous development has happened, or most of your product is indigenously developed. And there's a lot of evidence of this, because you have over 200 patents, right, if I'm right? And
250.
250 patents now, and
yes.
That's an amazing feat, right? And you also got into partnerships with companies like Google, right, in terms of maps. I've kind of seen some of those innovations. So since you've been at the forefront of innovation, right, in the EV space, how do you balance the need for the high-end technology and cutting-edge technology with some of the practical challenges that the consumers are facing from, for example, the charging network perspective or battery disposal?
So actually, see, the whole point of some of these technologies is not as a gimmick, right? Like we have one such organization who stays away from gimmick as much as possible. We want to use technology to push EVs faster into the market. Two, three big things which we have done. For example, we have designed our own charging infrastructure as well, right? Like we have about 2,000 odd charging infrastructure, fast charging infrastructure across the country. Even we designed a standard for specifically for light electric vehicles. So because what we realized is that the global standard which existed were mainly focused towards four-wheeler. They were not rightly designed for Indian two-wheeler conditions. They were either too expensive, too bulky, and not fit for a two-wheeler. So we went ahead and designed that. And we have been able to leverage technology, for example, connectivity, right? You want to be able to charge on a charging station, but you also want to know what is the status. If you are planning a route, you want to go from point A to point B, and you want to charge at a charging station, you actually want to know if the charging station is working or not, is somebody else charging there or not, and hence connectivity plays a big role in it. So leveraging technology to actually remove all the impediments which are there in EV adoption is critical. Same goes for connectivity on the vehicle. Now we have a ton of data which comes from the vehicle. Every single vehicle which is out there in the field, the data about the performance of the vehicle, voltage, current, temperature, your speed patterns, all of that is available for us in our system. Now what that enables us is to be able to design products a lot more robustly. Similarly, that gives us idea about how each and every individual is using their batteries, and hence second life of the battery becomes a lot easier because we have a complete history of every single cycle which the battery has gone through, every single temperature cycle that the battery has gone through. So that helps us understand how the battery life are going to evolve. Is it going to be 5 years? Is it going to be 7 years? We get a lot better visibility on top of it. So a lot of the technology investments which are happening in electric vehicles are actually, at least for us, is towards enabling future growth of the products. How do you design products better? The data you use helps you to design products for a because like anyone who's designed a product knows that you need usage data. That's how you can design a much more robust product. If you design and hence this data available directly from the field helps us to design products which are more statistically significant from the customer's perspective rather than designing for the worst case scenario. So the R&D spends and technology has to be leveraged to reduce the cost and make EVs mainstream. That's been our motive all along. No, not R&D for R&D sake or R&D for gimmicks sake.
So it's very, very data-driven, software-driven, and
Yes.
end user.
Very, very data-driven.
Experience-driven. So switching gears in terms of, in the EV world, we talk about the BEVs, the battery electric vehicles. Then we have the hybrids. We also have the plug-in hybrids, right? And of course now, more recently, the trend around the hydrogen fuel cell powered vehicles, right? So they're they have their own advantages and disadvantages. And, based on the individual needs, preferences, right? An assessment has to be made in terms of what suits, right, each individual. From your perspective, how do they compare from a perspective of efficiency, cost, performance? What's your take on the comparison between these three? And is there going to be a winner in this race, or do you think there will be a diversified or a diversified future?
Right. So I think, firstly, I'm no expert in hydrogen, but at least the way I look at it, you use electricity to do electrolysis and then develop hydrogen, and then you put that in a combustion engine, and the combustion engine gives you only like 30% efficiency. So you're losing so much of energy trying to generate that electricity and then losing that into developing hydrogen. So hydrogen, end of the day, becomes inefficient, right? So yes, it has its place where if you want to really do like long range rides, then probably hydrogen has a place. But most of our commutes, which are short range, especially again when I say from a two-wheeler perspective, it does not make any sense to go for an hydrogen vehicle. But more importantly, I think, see, the technology which wins is the technology which gets a lot of investments, right? Like for example, okay, so what we need to do is we need to commit to a technology. Right? As a country, we need to commit to a technology and ensure that we don't diversify our spends into multiple different spends. Because end of the day, I think the winner is usually the one which gets the highest amount of investment. I think that's been clear like all along that if the investments go into a particular technology, people find a way to make that technology more relevant. As long as the fundamentals are right, people will find a way to make that technology more scalable, more cost efficient, and all of that. So we need to commit to a technology. I believe that technology is EV, at least for 80% of our transportation need. There are going to be 20 cases where 20% either based on hydrogen or based on hybrid is possible. But if we don't make that commitment and keep being non-committal on a technology, then we will again lose a race. Just an example is that lithium iron phosphate was not a great technology when China started adopting it, right? NMC was the thing. Everybody was working on NMC. But China saw the opportunity that if I get iron phosphate to work, it will be a win for me. And they invested heavily in iron phosphate. And all the success stories which we see about iron phosphate or China's electrification journey, a lot of it is on the back of iron phosphate technology. So our technology, which was almost seemed like not usable, they made it work just because ensuring that they invested heavily on that technology. And I think that's what we need to do as well.
Got it. Yeah, 60% of, I think, China's EVs are on LFP, right?
Yes.
So you talked about policy and you talked about subsidies, right, when you answered the first question, right? So globally, if you look at it, I think the last decade or so, or even more, of EV adoption was driven by subsidies, driven by incentives across the world. It started with Norway in the 1990s, and US started offering subsidies in 2008, and China did it in 2014. But since the last 1 year, I think they've been pulling back on all the tax cuts, the rebates, right, and also the subsidies, right, overall. And of course, that resulted in a drop in the EV sales. And now that's happening in India as well, right, after the FAME 1 and FAME 2. People are still awaiting the FAME 3 policy to be rolled out. And today, if you have seen the Economic Times, in Delhi, for example, the EV sales have dropped because of the tax benefit of 10% has been withdrawn, right, since August 31st. So what's your take? I mean, I know you already commented on the stable policy for a longer term, but in terms of subsidies and incentive plans, what's your comment in terms of how that would truly accelerate the mainstream adoption, right, especially given the drop in the EV sales over the last 6 months?
Right. So, I think subsidies or other in some way to be able to incentivize the industry, I think is critical. Either direct consumer like the consumer side subsidy, or in some sense the producer side subsidy. Both is fine. Or even R&D subsidies, right? Because I like the major spends in EVs is actually on R&D, right? Like I think today most of us are in a place where the operations don't really cost as much money. The bigger chunk is actually the investment which you need to make to ensure the R&D happens, and then you're continuously improving your cost structures and improving your reliability of the product and launching more products in the market. Today, if you see, even though we have, let's say, 5-6 big OEMs, we only have 5 products, right, in the market in terms of two-wheeler. But if you compare that to ICE, there are probably 100 products out there. So you need to build variety as well for adoption to increase, which means that again more investment into R&D has to happen. So how do you incentivize R&D? I think that's the most critical thing. Subsidy is one way of improving sales, and as the sales increase, you anyway end up subsidizing in some sense subsidizing the R&D. But or rather, more than subsidizing, incentivizing R&D is, I think, very, very critical. It's also important that we don't miss the bus on electrification, especially in two-wheeler. As a country, this is a golden opportunity for us to be able to use this transition, because it's in the transition. For example, China again could not win in ICE four-wheeler, right? But when the transition happened from ICE to electric, they ensured that they put in all the investment in that area and become a global player in that. We have the same opportunity. Though we have a very strong base in ICE two-wheeler, we also have an opportunity now to make it even stronger and not miss the bus again to a Chinese or any other country. And hence, investing in R&D is very critical. This is one place where we can bring the entire technology stack in-house. With EVs, we have an opportunity to bring the entire technology stack from batteries to motors to motor controllers, everything in-house, and we should not miss out on this. In ICE, we still depend fairly on technologies coming from outside. Even though manufacturing happens in India, the technology is not still from India. And this is an opportunity where we have to capitalize and ensure that the entire technology development happens in India, stays in India, and we actually become a net exporter of the technology itself, and not just exporter of manufacturing.
Awesome. So I think you talked a lot about the incentivization of R&D, right? Yes. Just not the consumer subsidies, right? So there's a significant cost of R&D, and I mean, you know it the best because you've been investing for the last 10 years. A lot of global OEMs, right? The trend is you see a lot of announcements where, say, a Mercedes-Benz and BMW, or Honda and Nissan, they're all collaborating to co-create a lot of the technology solutions rather than going at it alone, which will also lead to a lot of standardization, either from a battery technology perspective, setting up of charging infrastructure, right, globally, and so on. So what's your take on, and you're an Indian OEM, right? What's your take on how the Indian OEMs can actually collaborate and co-create, in our industry here?
Yeah, I think definitely some sort of a standardization is definitely required, because if everyone is doing their own independent work, then the cost of R&D as a country goes up. Now, this can be the standardization can happen by open sourcing sort of some of these technologies. For example, that's what we did when we open source our charging infra standard. The entire charging infra standard, from physical layer to the communications layer, We have open sourced it, and we want more OEMs to adopt it, because then you don't need to reinvent the same thing. It's there. It's an infrastructure play. Nobody really benefits by doing it of their own. Plus, the industry coming together and coming up with one standard actually helps better push towards the electrification. I think it will still take some time, because Indian OEMs haven't been used to doing a lot of collaborations, especially in the two-wheeler side. Everyone has done their own things, and they have not done the collaboration. Also, today, most of the players in the industry are also player in the ICE industry, which means that for them, the incentive to move 100% towards electric is lesser. This is where I think more startups becomes important. More pure play EV players become important, because then they will have the incentive to come together, break these barriers. Not everyone inventing the same thing, and standardization happening, and that will definitely accelerate the move towards electrification. Along with that, I think some of these things could be developed by government-run labs, which can again be used by all the OEMs, and that can also help accelerate the transition towards electrification.
Great. See, when battery is a maximum cost, right, in an EV, and while the battery prices have kind of come down significantly over the last 10 years, from over $800 per kilowatt hour to less, I think just around 100. And you were just mentioning when you were catching up that it's one of the lowest price points as we speak. But there's a lot of innovation that's happening now to bring the cost further down, right, to make it competitive vis-a-vis ICE engines. So what's your take in terms of, when we keep hearing or reading about solid state, sodium ion, right, along with lithium iron phosphate that China is using significantly. So any comment in terms of what's your view on the latest advancements and from a battery technology perspective?
Right. I think lithium iron phosphate is now pretty much the reality. There will, I think both the chemistries will exist, lithium iron phosphate and NMC. For high range versions, you'll have NMC batteries. For lower end products, you will have the iron phosphate batteries. There's innovation happening from iron phosphate is migrating towards lithium manganese iron phosphate, LMFP sort of a chemistry. That might become the more useful than pure play LFP. This is more of in a more 2 to 3 years horizon is what I see. In a longer term horizon, I think definitely solid state has a strong potential. We are not, again, depends on how much R&D investment goes into it. Definitely has a lot of potential and can become a very, it's quite safe. So that's an added advantage of having a solid state battery. As investment go in, I think it will become popular. Sodium ion, a bit too early to say. It has its use cases. We have seen actually vehicles running in China with sodium ion. So it has its use case, but it's I think a more 5-7 years horizon is what I would say for sodium ion.
Thanks. I think I have one last question. We have 30 seconds. As a leader and a pioneer and a leader in the EV sector, what's your vision for the future of mobility, and how do you think Ather Energy can contribute to that vision?
Actually, we don't. While most people know of us as a mobility player, we also don't believe we are a mobility player. We believe we are an energy player. That's why the name Ather Energy and not Ather Motors. We believe that the technology, the world is going through a big transition in terms of its. First of all, the energy consumption is just rapidly rising. Every per capita energy consumption is rapidly rising, which means that we have to find newer ways of generating, storing, and the entire energy value chain has to get transformed. We are right now on the consumption side. We are trying to transform the consumption side from gasoline to electric. We believe we are going to have a major play in the entire energy domain and work on transforming the entire energy value chain.
So the vision truly is sustainable mobility.
Yes.
So with that, I think thank you, Swapnil, for fantastic insights, and wishing you and Tarun the very best.
Thank you. Thank you.
For more content on tech and leadership, subscribe to nasscom YouTube channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.